Ooh, man. Wow. Wow. So, so originally I was not going to do this video when this news hit because I wanted to get all the facts straight. And this is still a developing story, so we don't know um, what new information will surface tomorrow. I'm filming this on the 3rd when all this happened today. So tomorrow there might be some new information that may surface up. Um, But for the time being, right now, I'm going to talk about all the stuff that happened with Warner Brothers and laying out the groundwork of what it is this system is going to do. And then I'm then going to give you guys my opinion on it. So if you guys have not heard of this and you've lived under a rock, um, Warner Brothers has announced today that they will be dropping their entire 2021 film slate onto HBO Max. You've heard me correctly. All their films that were planned to come out theatrically are going straight to streaming as well. So here's what's the plan moving forward with these theatrical releases. So the model for this is going to be a hybrid release strategy, as they are going to do with Wonder Woman 1984, which we had covered also here as well on the previous news news section. Um, which is that it will be on HBO Max for 1 month for free, so no extra cost. And then once that 1 month is done, it's going to go directly back into the theaters, if or whatever theaters are still open at the time. And all of this is going to start on December 25th with the release of Wonder Woman 1984. Now, um, the some of the things that you may be thinking is, oh, well, they have those free trials things on HBO Max. I mean, I might just use those. Well, those free trials are no longer a thing, so they have scrubbed that completely. So now you have to pay the monthly fee, which is $14.99 a month. And this applies for the entire month and not just for that one particular screening. It applies for the entire month, so no subscription service changes have been made. It's all about that $14.99 per month deal, and it applies for that whole month. And I'll get back to uh, the monthly fee thing for a second because I think that that's really where my issues lie with this whole thing. But we'll get back to that in a second. Um, so with that, yes, so all the films that WB has coming out in 2021 are going to be initiating this hybrid strategy. Some of those titles that they have already announced include Godzilla vs. Kong, The Matrix 4, The Suicide Squad, Dune, that's surprising, Space Jam, A New Legacy, In the Heights, Tom and Jerry, and Mortal Kombat. Some of these films we talked about yesterday, and we had a suspicion that these films were going to go to HBO Max. Nobody saw this coming. Like, we'll get down to the quotes. Like you'll like literally no one knew about it, and I think that was probably a bad thing. But um, but they are all in on streaming. They are all in, committed 100% to the streaming, and those titles I just mentioned, that's just a handful. There's plenty more that I'm probably forgetting that are coming out in 2021 that are going to be on this hybrid release strategy. So. Um, the first thing I want to address before we get into my opinions is some of the statements that were put out by the CEO. So, Ann Softner, or Sarnoff, I think that's her last name, who is the chair and the CEO of Warner Media and Networks Group, put out a statement in regards to, well, she put out a bunch of statements, but there's one particular statement that everyone is alluding to and talking about that I'm going to talk about as well, that pretty much puts it in perspective how Warner Brothers is thinking about this plan that they're initiating. So the quote reads, this is from Deadline, by the way, all this information that I'm getting. Um, so the quote reads, "No one wants films back on the screen more than we do. We know new content is the lifeblood of theatrical exposition, but we have to balance this with the reality that most theaters in the US will likely operate at reduced capacities throughout 2021 because you are not going to supply the theater chains with enough chances to bring in people to the movie theaters. So kind of your fault. Anyway, with this unique one-year plan, we can support our partners and uh, exhibition with a steady pipeline of world-class films, while also giving moviegoers who may not have access to theaters or aren't quite ready to go back to the movies the chance to see our amazing 2021 films. We see it as a win-win for film lovers and exhibitors, uh, and we're extremely grateful to our filmmaking partners for working with us on this innovative response to these circumstances. Now, there are a couple of things wrong with this quote. The first thing is, no, this is the first sentence in that statement. No one wants films back on the big screen more than we do. Really, you really want films back on the big screen? So your idea for that is to do this entire is to not put just a few of these films on your service, but every single film theatrically that you're thinking of putting out in theaters is going directly to streaming. Um, with this hybrid strategy, which I will get into in a second, why this is not going to benefit at all theatrical run. It will not benefit theaters at all. But yeah, that's pretty bullshit. That first part that she said. No one wants films back on the big screen more than we do. Bullshit. You did this for a reason. I will explain what I believe that reasoning might be, but that's a complete lie. And what did she say? There was another part that I had made a comment on. Oh yeah, she said, but we have to balance this with the reality that most theaters in the U.S. will likely operate at reduced capacity throughout 2021 because, well, you're not supplying them anything. So, I mean, how do you expect them to move up when the second most demanding, or I would say like Disney and WB are like neck and neck in terms of content that they put out, in terms of revenue also that they make. Um, so you're gonna tell me that you're gonna eliminate half of one of those, if not both. And you're then going to say in your quote that the theaters are to blame for that type of situation, or yeah, well, COVID-19 obviously, but you're going to say to the theaters with a straight face that, uh, yeah, they're likely to be operating at a reduced capacity next year. We don't know what the reason will be besides COVID. Yes, you do. You took the movies out, so just saying. And we'll get back to this part in a second, because there's some shady stuff that happened with this deal. But um, but anyways, so then there's another statement that was put out by a separate CEO of Warner Media, Jason Kilar, I think that's his name. And I have the quote here, which is, quote, "We're here for the long term in terms of theatrical exhibition, and obviously in investing heavily in motion pictures and also investing heavily in marketing of those motion pictures." Again, as I said with Anne's statement that was put out, I just don't believe that that's the case. There's a reason why they did this. There's a reason why that we are having all of these movies, not just some, all of these movies are going to streaming. There's a reason for it, and I will explain why in a second. But so now I want to direct to you the thing that really, really pisses me off about these statements that came out. Not just because that they're just lies about how they feel about the theatrical run. Um, they, the Deadline article had revealed, um, if you read the fine print, that they didn't even tell exhibitors or some filmmakers about this decision even being made. They didn't inform any of the exhibitors. Like, read this. Like, listen to this. This is a quote from Deadline, who, by the way, had dropped the story. This is a quote. They said, "There were murmurs at rival studios that Warner Media was going to drop a bombshell in December. No one knew it would be this big. Even some of the creators close to the movies, I can tell you, weren't in the fold on this decision, except those with financial stakes. This is clearly a top-down corporate decision as the Conglom bets aggressively on HBO Max, which hasn't been an immediate triumph out of the gate." So, which that article also, that small little bit of statement also gets to a point that I want to discuss further, which is my main point. And I spoken to this to a couple of people. I spoken to my dad about it. He actually works for AT&T, and we had a little bit of a back and forth about it, to say the least. And while I understand his points and I understand where he's coming from, I kind of disagree with him on a particular matter, which is this. I think that this strategy has many potential to work. Like there's no doubt about it. This strategy is all experimental. I mean, clearly it's experimental, and we don't know what or how and if it's going to work. Um, so everything that I'm saying is based on speculation. It's based on my own feeling. It's based on just the handful of research that I've done. Um, because again, I'm not a suit. I don't work for companies, so I don't know how the actual business is run. Even with further explanation, I'm not fully certain about how stuff like that works. All I'm saying is from an outsider perspective, as a film fan and all that stuff, I'm just providing my 2 cents on how I feel about this particular manner. Um, and from all the research that I have done, because I did a little bit of research today just to make sure that where I'm at with my thoughts is where I'm at, and I'm not just trying to spit up some stupidity. I'm actually trying to, provide a concrete um, reasoning as to why I feel the way I do, and I feel confident in saying this. Um, that firstly, I don't know if the strategy does have a lot of financial gain as WB thinks it does, because the the fault with this monthly fee that they are now that they have with now adding in all this other content is that $14.99 per month does not apply to multiple viewings. So there's no premium on any of these films. So through that 1 month that WB is going to get through that particular product is based off of one person's purchase through that monthly subscription, and they don't get the chances of adding more revenue to a multiple chance viewing as they would have done for theatrical runs. And I argued that many people do go to the theaters more than once. Maybe not us, maybe not our friends, but there are lots of people that do go to the movies more than once to see a movie more than once. I mean, shit, look at Avengers Endgame. I mean, that movie made $2.5 billion, not because everyone saw it the first day. People went back and saw it again. And it's for a particular IP. I'm not saying that all IPs do this. I'm not saying if you're an indie, you're going to be getting the chance to see it again. You might, hopefully. But for strong, heavy hitters like Godzilla vs. Kong, The Matrix 4, The Suicide Squad, Dune, Wonder Woman 1984, all these big tentpoles um, are likely to have rewatchability and people who want to watch these films again. So to now give them the luxury for an entire month, the first month of their release, mind you, where 90%, I believe, yeah, 90% of where your revenue should be come from, according to analysts that I have seen online, to now limit your resources to now one subscription service, which is not even proven, by the way, to have no subscription service also has proven to have had a strategy like this work in the first place. You're going to dump your entire slate onto a subscription service um, and have charged people for $15 per month for time, one time. I don't see where all the money is going to go. I just don't. And let me paint it this way. Mulan, even though it was cheaper, even though Disney Plus is cheaper, $5 a month, I think it's like $6 a month, and that they had the premium price laid up on it. Yes, the downside to their flop is that nobody came to pay that premium. But look at this. But look at the results from for people who did pay for that premium. $70 million was generated off of Mulan, and that was a $200 million film, at least from what I've heard. I mean, I don't know what the actual statistics and data were, but that's the number that we have provided from some sources that I've seen. And we're now going to go to WB here, and they have $14.99 per month, and that's it, no premium on there. And it's going to be applied for a month, and it's only paid for that one time. I don't see where you're going to be able to generate a lot of revenue. Generate a lot of revenue, mind you, for tentpole projects. These are not indie projects. These are not like $15 million projects or projects that are like medium range. We're talking about heavy hitters, films that could have been that are box office giants or had the potential to be box office giants. Like Wonder Woman 1984, which I still say could have been the biggest movie of 2020. But now with this new deal, with how everything's going down with this, even when Wonder Woman 1984 got announced for HBO Max, I still thought that was not a great idea for it, even though I also recognize that it's also the best idea for it because there's nothing else out here to really do. So, because Wonder Woman 1984 is going to lose money. We all know this. Wonder Woman 1984 is going to lose money. And For me, my thought process was, why couldn't you not just see, before you launch this giant experiment that you're about to do, why can't you not just see how Wonder Woman performs first? Why is that hard to do? Why can't you not see how Wonder Woman performs first? Look at the data, see how that tracks to other projects, and then make an announcement like this. You don't just drop your load like this um, and not have any foresight as to how this is going to work. Now, I understand the argument about, well, we're living in a pandemic, anything goes, and all that stuff, and I understand why this decision was made because of that reason. I understand that, but I'm not for the the idea of just doing something this massive. I understand doing maybe small bits. I understand maybe taking it in a much more smaller approach with other projects that can potentially make more money, and then making maybe a different deal of some kind. I understand that those ideas were there because they claim this is the best idea that they had possible, and I'm like, no, there are other ideas that you could have done. Um, and because really the reason why they did this is because they are desperate. They're desperate, they're scared that these movies are not going to be able to, even with the theaters when eventually when they reopen, hopefully if they reopen, um, they they're afraid that these movies are going to get stale, no one's going to want to go watch them, and they just want to get them out as soon as possible, which I understand. But the point of putting out, if you're talking from a business, the reason why you get these movies out there is to make money. And I just don't see, based off of a subscription service that is $14.99 per month, and it only applies for the one time. You only have to pay one time, and you get the whole movie for free for that one month. And then that movie gets removed. That movie gets removed after a month, and then it goes directly to theaters. So basically, your revenue is off of one month. That's where all your money comes from, is from one month from a subscription service that is $14.99 a month for that one time. Because this is where my title of the video comes in. WB has basically killed the theaters. This is the beginning of the end of the movie theaters. I know people have been using that phrase a lot, but this really is the beginning of the end of the movie theaters. I mean, it is. Um, I mean, come 2021, we may not even have movie theaters. Like maybe like we might have a few that might be able to exist, but this is not going to do them any favors. This is solely against the movie theaters, and they they like this deal spells destructive results for movie theaters. It just spells destructive results because nobody's going to go to the theater. Who the hell is going to go to the movie theater? Who? Who's the hell is going to go to the movie theater? And um, and I argue that if something like this does not work, because you can't backtrack. Once you're done, this is how it goes, okay? Yes, they say it's a temporal decision and that they're gonna move forward throughout this year and see how it works. But if it's successful, we know this temporal thing is gonna become the new norm. We know this is how this is gonna work out. And the reason why this is scary is because this changes the cinematic landscape forever. This is a new era that we are entering, guys, because I'm going to make a prediction right now, and I'm guaranteeing you I'm going to be on the money. Give it a few days, or hell, give it a few months. Disney's going to announce the same thing. Disney's going to announce the same exact thing. Or maybe not the same exact thing, but something almost similar to this effect, because this is now streaming competition, and WB just laid out the gauntlet with all the stuff for HBO Max. You don't think Disney's going to announce something similar to this effect? Because once Disney does, then it's dead. Theaters are dead. I mean, they're practically dead now because of this WB decision. But once Disney puts out something similar like this, which they have to at this point because you have a competitor now coming out here with their entire slate, Disney's got to follow suit. They got to. They have to. No, almost confirmed that Black Widow will be on Disney Plus at this point. How they do their service, we'll see. I mean, if they'll do premium, I suggest they do a premium. Yes, it's going to be a little bit harder to get people to see your product, but for something that we have never done before, there has to be safeguards. There has to be something that has us protected in some capacity. And I'm not saying we do a $30 premium because that was stupid. Nobody was going to pay $30 for Mulan. $5 maybe, or hell, $1 Just put up a premium. Just put up a small little premium so that you could just save yourself a little bit and entice your viewers with all the features that come with it. Entice it with the 4K resolution, entice it with the documentaries, entice it with the bonus features, entice with the Q&A, entice with behind the scenes. All this stuff. This will this will make people want to watch the film because they want to watch the film the best way possible. They don't want to watch from some 7020p that crappy looking thing. They want to watch it in the 4K resolution, the way that it was meant to be watched. Um, with the sound design too, the Dolby Atmos thing, like you promote all that shit, and I guarantee you that somebody will be willing to pay a premium. I guarantee you they will. Even an average audience member will definitely do so if you entice them in that particular way. I guarantee you that they will. Um, and I hope that HBO Max understands that come launch with Wonder Woman 1984. Because I'm telling you, I don't think Wonder Woman 1984 is going to make a lot of money. I really don't. Analysts have already been saying, like, dude, I don't think this movie is making money. It's going to make some money. Don't worry. I mean, it's going to make some money. I mean, it's not going to be an absolute train wreck, but it's not going to make the money that, like, if it makes Tenet numbers, that's not looking good. If it surfaces above Tenet, then we might have something interesting on our hands. But I think it's going to hit around Tenet's numbers, and that's not promising. Which is really funny when you consider that WB was all about the theaters so many months ago because they were releasing Tenet during a pandemic. Okay, Tenet is a WB project. They were releasing that shit as the savior as the theaters. Remember that whole thing back in May and June when they were releasing Tenet in theaters during this whole pandemic, and they were having theaters trying to get reopened for the release of Tenet. They said this is going to bring people back to the movie theater. We're going to be the one that saves movie theaters. And what happened? Movie basically flopped in terms of realistic numbers, but in terms of COVID numbers, it did pretty well. But yeah, I feel like this is going to be the same situation here. They're going to be like, yeah, we're going to bring this content on, and oh shit, it's not performing as well as we thought. And then here's what I believe is going to happen. If this actually flops, I said this to my dad, and maybe again, I don't work for studios, so maybe this rationale is incorrect. But you guys let me know if it's incorrect. Maybe if someone else also works in the industry that watches maybe this video or whatever, if you know anything about these decisions or anything about like how these things operate or how these types of decisions come to be made in these meetings, let me know if what I'm about to say is just pure bullshit or if I actually have some meat on the bone. Um, so let's look back at a deal that took place between Universal and AMC. Remember how Universal basically said fuck you to AMC, and then they went to release their Trolls World Tour, and they had this whole fiasco going on. AMC was like, we're not going to release any of your movies and all that stuff. What happened? They ended up speaking to each other, and AMC got a nice little deal where they actually get some of the profits from streaming. So anytime, because Universal was able to get their nice deal, but AMC came over and said, okay, we can work with this deal, but we need to gain some of that profit that you guys are going to be making from this. So what do? They allow them to have the 30-day window, or I think it's like how many day, some certain number of day window, and then they have the option to bring it to streaming. Basically, the opposite of what HBO Max is doing. The only difference is that that theater in particular is earning some revenue off of Universal Studios. Not a whole lot, but still enough, but still like a number. And I feel like that Warner Brothers, if this falls on their face, if this ends up being a shit show and ends up being something that does not work out for them, which I have a suspicion it's probably not going to. I have a suspicion this is not going to work because, as I said, that payment thing I just don't think does any wonders for any of these IPs. 17 of these tentpoles, 17 of them. You're telling me that 17 of these things, mind you, that I think some of them are within the same month. I don't know. But you're telling me that only for one payment, one time guarantee, you think that that's going to be able to suffice for all these projects? I don't think so. And I think that if this all falls on their face, and because here's the reason why I'm bringing up this theory, because this brings up another point that really, just gets me a little upset. the exhibitors or stocks have plunged and are starting to sink just from this announcement alone. Cinemark shares have decreased by 22%. AMC's have gone down to 16%. Marco's 13%. IMAX 8%, and the National Cinemedia shares have dropped to 5%. So they're dropping as we know it, just based off this one announcement. Um, and they didn't, and again, they didn't have any insight on this thing as well. WB just dropped this, and they left the exhibitors behind. And the statements that AMC and Cinemark also put out, they're not happy. So what do you think is going to happen if this deal doesn't work out? And the theatrical windows were still available, and they have not plunged and closed shop. You really think that WB is going to walk in there with the deal that they have done before and still get that same deal? No way. These theaters are going to come in, and they're going to come in with a certain percentage deal that AMC did with Universal, and they're going to be able to get a certain cut that they didn't get before, and the theater and WB is just going to have to fall through with it, because where else do they have to go if the streaming thing does not work out for them? Of course, they would have to have the theatrical window, because that's the only other viable option at their disposal. They're not just going to give up on making movies, okay? They're going to still want to put out content, because that's a valuable asset within their company. So what they're going to have to do is either they're going to have to fold through streaming, which is what they're doing with this hybrid idea, which, again, as we have established, is basically the killer for movie theaters. It's the nuclear bomb that's going to just destroy and obliterate movie theaters as we know it. And if this falls on their face, and if some odd reason some of these films survive the bomb that's going to be dropped, if they talk to a Regal or an AMC, those two are going to come in, Regal or AMC, whoever they talk to, and they're going to ask for a certain percentage deal. And guess what? WB is going to have to do it, because as The Godfather once said, they're going to make an offer that they cannot refuse, because if WB cannot go elsewhere and this is their last resort, they're going to do whatever they need to do at a reasonable price, at a reasonable deal, to make sure that they make profit with their films. And I really think that's what happened if that was to happen with this deal, because we live in a big if right now. We don't know what is going to happen with this new strategy. We have no idea if this is going to work. We have no idea if this is going to fall on their face. We have absolutely zero clue. I personally believe that while it may not fall on their face, I think that's going to be a big setback for them. I don't think that this is a great strategy. But again, I state this again, I don't know what else they could have done. I really don't know what else they could have done. As I said, I think that maybe just taking at small doses with like one big IP and then smaller other IPs, and then experimenting like that, and not dropping your entire load, because I think that was a big mistake to drop a load like that. Doing it in small doses, I feel like would be much better, versus just dropping all your films at once. I don't think that was a smart strategy at all. And beyond that, if you look at it from the theatrical standpoint, this is jeopardizing a lot of other things. We have people there's going to be so many unemployment. The unemployment rate is going to be crazy. I mean, the unemployment rate is crazy as it is, but we're going to be adding thousands of new numbers to that. And to not inform your exhibitors about that at all in any capacity, that is wrong. That is totally irresponsible. And the theaters have absolutely every right to be pissed off. They have absolutely every right to be upset. And if this falls on their face and then they try to come back to these theaters to try to work up a deal, these theaters have absolutely every right to come in there and make a deal of their own. But nothing that's gonna change the deals entirely, but they can come in there with a bigger percentage, and they can, WB will work with it if it's reasonable enough, and they have every right to do so. And I think that it's sad. I mean, it really is sad, because this is a really shitty deal for theaters. It's a really shitty deal for theaters. And I also want to inform that I had also contributed to the Save Your Cinema campaign that was initiated by the NATO organization. I had personally sent out a letter to Congress. I don't know if it actually goes to Congress, quote unquote Congress. I I laid out my arguments, and with their arguments also implemented. If you guys want to campaign and save your own cinemas, because the time is now. The time is now to have our voices heard about this stuff, and um, to just contribute and make sure that you're helping out with our own uh, film communities and stuff. Just go to that link and just send a letter to them, and tell them that, hey, we need help because the studios aren't doing that for us. They're not doing that for us, so we need the government to help us out. So um, yeah, so um, in the end, I think that this is a situation that is has the potential to be extremely destructive. I think this is an extremely destructive situation that that I think is going to do a lot more harm than they think it is going to do. Um, and I think that come with Wonder Woman 1984, if that film does Tenet numbers, that's not a good sign. If it does more than Tenet, then we might actually have a good situation on our hands. But regardless, in either scenario, the theaters are done. I'm sorry, but they're done. This is the end of the movie theaters. They are gonna die out very, very soon. And this pretty much just put them in a much more shittier spot. And To not inform them at all, to not inform even your creators of, by the way, your creators of film, of your products. Um, I'm curious to know who those people are, who they didn't inform. That is also irresponsible and disrespectful. And I would not be surprised if many of these filmmakers had walked out of the studio and went to a different company. You will not be seeing Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan's going to be walking out of this because he's not all about streaming. So you're not going to have Nolan. You're not going to have Spielberg. I mean, Spielberg's been very vocal about streaming. He does not. He's not at all about streaming. Which, by the way, West Side Story would also be on HBO Max. I just realized that West Side Story, I believe, is coming out next year. So how does Spielberg feel about this? Um, I think that I think what we're going to see in the next few days is a lot of pushback from this. There's already been a lot of pushback online for this. A lot of people are against this, me included, for various reasons, mainly due to the way it was announced. Because while I am not in favor with the actual announcement, I understand that certain decisions like these have to be made, and am I'm not, you know, I'm not putting my head in the sand and saying, like, it has to be in theaters. No, if it needs to be on streaming for the reasons that they have laid out, I can understand those reasons. I understand if something may get sour or something that may become too stale or and not be in the public eye as much. I understand that rationale entirely, but that's not fully why their rationale. Their main reason is that they just don't believe in the theatrical experience anymore. They just don't. If they did, they wouldn't do this hybrid strategy because they know for certain that this hybrid strategy is all benefits to them. This is all benefits to them. They get all the benefits, and the theaters get nothing. The theaters really get nothing. They might get a small thing, but they really don't get anything. And as I said, not talking to your exhibitors, not talking to your filmmakers is absolutely disrespectful and completely irresponsible behavior. And yeah, this is again a developing story, so there's going to probably be a lot more news to cover with this once it gets unveiled. But I just wanted to discuss my thoughts on this just as one piece. We'll talk about this more in like a news topic video when we discuss other things when new information arises, or if it's anything substantial like this, I'll just do another video on it. But like I said at the start of this, do not be surprised if Disney does this thing too. If Disney does this, theaters are done. Theaters are absolutely done. I mean, theaters are pretty much done as is, but that'll be pretty much the last straw. That'll pretty much be the end of it. And I'm telling you, I think Disney's doing it. I think Disney's going to announce maybe not the same thing, but something very, very similar to this effect. Because the streaming wars have now gotten to a whole other level with this announcement. And you have Disney Plus over here who's been killing it lately, and now you got HBO Max coming out here saying we got our whole theatrical slate coming to streaming. What do you have? Disney Plus is going to come out here with something extremely similar. Black Widow, we know for a fact is going to streaming. We know that. We know that sometime this month probably Black Widow will be announced to be on Disney Plus. We know that a bunch of other things are most likely going to be going to Disney Plus. They already were looking at a bunch of stuff. to go to Disney Plus as is. I think as we talked about in the last news topic video. So, you know, Disney is more than likely to announce the same thing too, or something to that effect. So be on the lookout for the next few days. But basically, to wrap up this whole video, because I know it's a long video that just talking about one topic, but basically where I stand on it is this. I don't think this is a great idea. I think that there is going to be a lot of consequences to this, particularly in the unemployment. I think that I'm not in favor of all those layoffs and all those unemployment rates that are about to occur with this. I think that that's wrong. I think that it's very disrespectful to not inform your exhibitors or your filmmakers, the people who have been generating you the billions of dollars that you have made for decades, to now not inform them of a of an era-changing decision like this. Um, it is completely disrespectful and wrong, and I would not be surprised if we heard any blowback from, I would not be surprised if we heard so much blowback from the filmmakers themselves. I would not be surprised if a Spielberg or a Nolan had told WB, "Hey, we're done. We're not doing business with you." Um, would not be surprised. Um, so I think that I think it's a very, very ballsy move to make, but it is also extremely dangerous. And I just don't know how this is going to work out. I am hoping that it works. I mean, I hope this thing works because I am not against streaming. Let me just make that clear before I go. I am not against streaming. I think streaming is extremely valuable, and I think that it's done a lot of great things for a lot of these studios. And I think that streaming is a valuable place for release. I'm not against I'm not Martin Scorsese. I'm not against streaming. All right, I love streaming. If I had the luxury to put a film out somewhere, and if it had to be through streaming, I had no problem putting it through streaming. Um, and I think that it has a lot more. I've heard from people who work through streamers that they have a lot more creativity, a lot more free reign also. So that's a benefit to to working with a streamer is that you have that creative edge over working with a studio. Um, but I just think this plan spells out so much risk and so much consequence that could potentially happen with this. And just from an analysts and experts and from all the research that I've gathered from today, it just doesn't seem like a great idea. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe come December 25th, after that month period, maybe we'll see numbers that are absolutely big. If, like I said, if they're tenant numbers, probably not looking at something that great. So, but we shall see. We'll see come December 20th. We'll see come December 25th if everybody shows up. And at that point, we'll see if this is a great idea or if they can backtrack from this. Maybe they'll talk to some theaters. And like I said, if they do, those theaters are coming in with a percentage deal that coming in with a certain percentage, whether you take it or not. And it's going to be reasonable. It's not going to be something absurd where the studios walk away. Just appealing enough where the studios can have to take it and they're okay with it, you know? So similar to the fact of like Universal and AMC's deal that they struck up a few months back. So, but again, if you work with theaters or you work with this and that, just leave a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts for anybody who works in the industry and give some more insight as this. And just say here, just to make sure if I'm vocalizing stuff correctly and if I'm or if I'm just spitting up a bunch of bullshit, because I'm just relying all on my research. So maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But like I said, this could work. Who knows? But I think that there's a lot of consequences with this. And I just don't know how this is all going to work out. Because this is the end of an era. This truly is the end of the era. Streaming is our present. It is no longer our future. It is our present. This is where it's going to be. And I just think the theaters are done. The theaters are dead. And like I said, if you want to support the theaters and getting them back to a certain shape, hopefully, or keeping them financially stable, go to the Save My Cinema, Save Your Cinema, the website provided by NATO and being sent out by NATO. All the letters that you send out are going to be sent out through NATO themselves to Congress, and because I don't know if they actually go to Congress or not, but if you want to support them, I've already sent out a letter, so please do your part as well. But we'll get more updates on this, but I just wanted to give my thoughts on this. I just talked about this for like 40 minutes, so I hope that you guys understand what my points are. Um, but but yeah, so we'll talk more about this later when we get more information. But beyond that, just we'll see what happens, I guess, because this is a very it's a very interesting thing that's happened today. I mean, this made my day. Like today, I was just thinking about this all day and just reading up on it and getting all my information correct. Um, but or making or verifying some certain information. Let me clarify. Um, but yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on this deal. This like game-changing deal. Let me know your guys' thoughts on it, and tell me if you think that this is actually going to work out for them, or if you're similar to me and you think that there's going to be a lot more consequences to this than they actually think. Um, Let me know your thoughts, and um, I'll do another video if there's another update. My next video is going to be Mank though. I will be doing a review of Mank, so look out for that when it's publicized. Hopefully on the 5th, maybe. Hopefully when it drops. Or no, it drops tomorrow on the 4th. What am I talking about? Uh, um, but hopefully I have a video out by the 4th or so. For Mank, because I'm going to publish this video on the 4th, so probably I'll have a video for Mank on the 5th. So look out for Mank by then. So, um, but yeah. So that's it for this video. You guys let me know your thoughts on it, and I will catch you next time.